Hello, I'm doing a book review, and the book I want to review is Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Now, Moby Dick was published in 1851, and what's interesting about this book is during Herman Melville's lifetime, this book, I believe, only sold maybe 50 copies. It really did not sell very well at all when Herman Melville was alive. It wasn't until, I believe, the 20s, actually, when this book started getting some recognition. But in his lifetime, the book never really, nobody really paid attention to the book. It really wasn't until years after Herman Melville died that this book got considered to be, the classic that it is. Now, Moby Dick, Now, of course, I think everybody knows the story of Moby Dick. It's a very famous story. Even if you never read the book, I think you know the general story of Moby Dick. Now, I first got introduced to the story of Moby Dick when I was a little kid, and when I was a little kid, I saw one of the film adaptations of this book. It was actually the one with Patrick Stewart in it, and I remember when I was a little kid, I just fell in love with the whole story of Moby Dick, and and I only recently read the book, but I've always been interested in the general story of Moby Dick, and it's always been a story that I liked, but I only recently read the actual novel Moby Dick, and I do have to say, while it is a good book, and I do love the general story of Moby Dick, I do have a few problems with the book, but the problems I have with the book are only personal problems, and they're problems that other people might not have with the book. Other people might find these problems I had, for other people, these problems I had with the book might not be problems at all, but might be things that people might find really interesting about the book. But basically, the book goes into a lot of detail about the whaling industry and about whales in general, and there's actually 3 chapters in this book describing the different types of whales there are, and there's a lot of details about whales and about the whaling industry, and some people might find that to be very interesting. If you're a history buff, I would definitely recommend checking this book out if you're interested in what the whaling industry was like, and in a lot of ways the book is almost like a textbook on the whaling industry, and a lot of that, I believe, was taken from personal experience, because I know Herman Melville, a few years before he wrote this book, I know Herman Melville actually spent a few years on board a whaling vessel, so, a lot of that may have been taken from personal experience. Now, but for me personally, a lot of the details about the whaling industry really kind of slowed the book down for me, and for me personally, it was not an easy book to get through. It was still in general a good book, but for me personally, though, it wasn't really an easy book to get through. Actually, this book took me a while to get through, actually. Now, the basic story of Moby Dick is it's about a whaling vessel called the Pequod, which is run by a man named Captain Ahab. Now, Ahab, I guess you can say, is the main villain of the book, but that is debatable because, if you look at it from his point of view, he is in some ways, the protagonist. I personally think he's the villain of the book, but he is somewhat of a sympathetic villain, but basically Ahab is now on a mission to hunt down and kill a whale named Moby Dick. Now, you find out in the book that this whale, Moby Dick, on a previous voyage, Ahab got his leg bitten off by Moby Dick, and this has really driven Ahab insane, and Ahab now walks on a peg leg. Now, what happens is, Ahab is so obsessed with trying to hunt down and kill Moby Dick that it's really endangering the lives of his crew, because he really doesn't care about whaling at all. Like, he doesn't care about just, like, hunting whales for their oil or anything. He just wants this one particular whale, Moby Dick. Now, in the book, you realize that a lot of aspects of Moby Dick are really based in rumor and legend. Like, in the book, like, there are rumors that Moby Dick is almost like some kind of a godlike being, because in the book, I believe there's a part in the book where, they mention how there are rumors that Moby Dick has actually appeared in 2 places at once. So, in the book, there are legends about Moby Dick, that Moby Dick is some kind of a god almost, and you realize that Moby Dick is looked at with almost supernatural awe, and you realize that a lot of these are just legends and rumors, and really Moby Dick is really just a whale, but a lot of stuff about Moby Dick is really based in legend. And what happens is Ahab is so obsessed with he's so obsessed with trying to hunt down and kill Moby Dick that it really is, like I said, endangering the lives of his crew, which is why I consider him to be really the main villain of the book. And, and it really is a book almost about the dangers of obsession, because his obsession with Moby Dick is what ultimately leads to his downfall. And, basically, and in the book, you realize that that Captain Ahab is an educated man, but a lot of the crew aren't very educated, and Ahab does kind of take advantage of his crew in that aspect. And now the whole book is narrated by a man named Ishmael, and Ishmael is a pretty interesting character, but even though he's the narrator of the book, he's really not the main focal point of the book. Really, the main focus of the book is Ahab and his obsession with trying to kill Moby Dick, and that's the basic plot line of the book. Now, in the book, I want to say one of my favorite characters in the book is a character named Pequod, and I think I'm saying his name right, and Pequod is a freaking awesome character. Now, basically, Pequod is a pagan. Like, he worships this little idol, and he's from an island. I forgot where he's supposed to be from, but Ishmael, the main character of the book, or the narrator of the book, first meets Pequod at this inn, and he has to share a room with Pequod. And in the beginning, I really loved the whole relationship between Ishmael and Pequod, because they both come from 2 totally different cultures. Like, Ishmael is a Christian and Pequod is a pagan, and they worship 2 totally different gods. But in the beginning, like when you're first introduced to Pequod, Ishmael is actually very prejudiced against Pequod, and he even accuses Pequod of being like a cannibal and stuff, but eventually Ishmael does end up accepting Pequod, even though Pequod comes from a very different culture than Ishmael does. And because like I said, Ishmael is a Christian and Pequod is a pagan, and even though they worship 2 totally different gods, Ishmael does learn to accept Pequod despite their differences, and that's something I really liked about it. I liked the whole relationship between Ishmael and Pequod, and Ishmael even says at one point in the book that he feels like it's his duty as a Christian to accept Pequod, even if Pequod's beliefs go completely against his own beliefs. So, I really loved the whole relationship between Ishmael and Pequod. That's one thing I really did like about the book, was some of the relationships between the characters. Okay, another thing I liked about the book is there's a lot of, like, religious undertones to the book, or, like, there's a lot of, like, religious aspects to the book. Like, throughout the book, there's a lot of references to the Bible, especially the story of Jonah and the whale, and, and one of my favorite chapters in the book is, there's a chapter in the book, before they get onto the Pequod, where they're in a church, and a priest is reading to them the story of Jonah and the whale. I thought that was very interesting, and also throughout the book there's constant references to whales as leviathans, which is something taken from the Bible, I believe. Also another thing I saw in the book is, and this is just my interpretation, other people might have a very different interpretation, but something I saw in the book was, I saw kind of a parallel with the story of Captain Ahab trying to hunt down and kill Moby Dick. I saw kind of a parallel with that and the story of Satan, because in the whole legend of Satan, supposedly Satan was an angel who tried to rebel against God, and ultimately he failed. I saw kind of a parallel with that and the story of Ahab, because basically, if you know the story of Satan, you know that Satan's fight against God and Satan's mission to rebel against God ultimately led to his downfall and the downfall of all the angels who followed him. I saw kind of a parallel with that and the story of Ahab, because in this book, Ahab, his fight against Moby Dick and his mission to kill Moby Dick ultimately leads to his downfall, and unfortunately the downfall of his crew. So I saw kind of a parallel with the whole story of Satan, and that's just my interpretation. I kind of feel like Ahab almost represents Satan in a way, and like Moby Dick almost represents like God in a way. That's just my interpretation, but most people say that Ahab actually represents mankind's need to be above nature. But Moby Dick is a book I would definitely recommend. I did have a few problems with it. Like, I thought the book was kind of slow moving, but overall it was a decent read. I would definitely, I do want to say, keep in mind that this book, it is a slow read, and it's not an easy book to get through, but it's still definitely an interesting book, and I would recommend it. Just keep in mind that it is a slow read. Now, there were a couple of film adaptations of this book. I think the two most well-known ones are, there was one in the 50s with Gregory Peck, which was actually written by Ray Bradbury, and then there was one in the 90s with Patrick Stewart, and that's the one that actually introduced me to the whole Moby Dick story. But yeah, that's my review on Moby Dick by Herman Melville, and bye.